Good morning, I'm Fernanda, General Manager of the Chamber, and I just want to say hi and thank you all for coming today. And before we proceed with today's program, I just want to thank you, Fundação Abrinq, for the partnership, and just like to invite Vitor Graça, Executive Director at Fundação Abrinq, to introduce our panelists today. Thank you.
Thank you, people from the Chamber, they are supporting us. My team in Brazil, Tamires, and we're going to chat a little bit today, talk about some data in Brazil and some children and Abrinq Foundation.
Good morning, everyone. It is an honor to be here today. I'd like to start by thanking the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce for providing us with this excellent opportunity. I also thank all of you being here. I will now briefly share the history of the Abrinq Foundation. The Brazilian Toy Manufacturers Association, Abrinq, established the Child Rights Advocacy Board in 1989, which would later become the Abrinq Foundation. The initiative was motivated by the belief that we work in favor of children and adolescents in vulnerable situations in the country should not be an individual action, but an effort of the entire society. In 1990, the Abrinq Foundation was born with the goal of promoting the rights and citizens of children and adolescents. The Abrinq Foundation advocates for inclusive and high-quality education to promote and health lives, share responsibility with the government and private social investment for the benefits of childhood.
Abrinq Foundation, we don't receive money from the government. We're totally free. Our budget is supported by individual donors, more than 50,000 individual donors, small amounts every month, and more than 7,000 companies. We have a program, it's our children program, the first one from the Abrinq and the Abrinq Foundation. So we support NGOs who help children. So different kinds of education programs, we support them with food and other presentations. And it's a transversal thing that when we support them in activities, they have arts and culture, education, sports, technology, environment, gender equality, which is very important nowadays, defense of indigenous rights, and racial equality. As you know, in Brazil we have a huge problem, and all the numbers are really bad when you put the numbers in different perspectives. So we are working on a pilot in Ituba, in Bahia States, when we train the professionals, cooks, and children, anthropometric evaluation. But to be honest, we are struggling because at the end of the day, they don't have food. It's terrible, but we are working there. So, zero mortality is another program that we developed, which is now it was in the south, and now it's in Sergipe and Bahia. So we work with the cities, the mayors, to prevent those deaths. Again, training people, healthcare professionals, and doing this infant mortality committee, because they need to know why children are dying in the city, and they make a plan. This is a 2 years cycle program. That in the first year we work in training, in planning, and the second year monitoring and evaluation. Another problem, vaccination, it's a global issue nowadays. So the goal is to have 95% of the children vaccinated. we are around 75. And people, now they think, we don't have polio anymore, because in my city. Okay, you don't have, but when you are a tourist city, like Santos, so the disease came from abroad. So we are working in Santos and we're going to add 3 more cities next year to prevent or to increase the number of vaccination, expanding polio. It's a project in partnership with the city, and Sanofi, it's a huge company who are supporting us because they know the problem. And so the idea is to have, again, the goal is 95% of vaccination in children. Working in the 9th grade, which is 1 year before high school, preparing the children and the teachers to build a plan so they can choose a better way in high schools, avoiding dropouts. So if the guy is better in Portuguese, they can go this itinerary. If you're better than maths, another itinerary. I went to professional, technical, so they can go through, but they need to know the options and prepare themselves to the next step. We have this daycare center for all. We are remodeling daycare centers, training teachers, and the goal here is to have 50% of access to children. We have 30%, as I said, but if you cut the numbers, you can see that poor black women who live in communities, they have only 15% of access. So it's less than the another education project that we developed. The tree, which is Otávio Hot was our board member, and he has some pictures here in the UN, in New York, in Geneva, and we developed with it's art education, talking about children's rights all over Brazil. So we were in Amazon, now we are in the middle of Brazil, and we are going to northeastern next year. Again, education. Change the history, it's reading mediation. So teenagers are reading books so they can improve Portuguese and can develop their skills. And they are going to read to children between 8 and 10, which is good to prevent bullying. So it's teenagers reading to small children. It's very nice. Alphabetiza, because we said that the education's schools were closed for 2 years in Brazil. So literacy was very technical. We have technical problems in this. So we started this program with first, second, and third grade in Brazil, training teachers who came, they came for other activities and became teachers. So we are helping them to improve, to get a better literacy to children first, second, and third grade. All those programs, all those activities, 16 programs and projects, 130,000 children, but they are like more than 60 million in Brazil. How can we scale up? Children are in the cities, so we invite mayors to be mayor friend of children. In Brazil is 5,570 cities, 1,350 mayors signed this agreement with us, saying that they're gonna prioritize children in their term. However, they need to give us a diagnosis. There are some steps to be the mayor friend of children. They become 700 and they become 400, and next year we're going to celebrate and to give them an award just for the best 100 mayors in Brazil. It will be an event in Brasilia. Child-friendly president, we invite the president to, we already have the SDGs signed as an agreement, but we need to say that, okay, we have goals, we need to develop some public policies. That's why we need this report. We're going to get done and say, you know, here's the problem. Lula signed it in the first and the second, Dilma signed it, and we are in the middle of the decision to sign again this commitment. We're talking about who support us, so we have those 7,000 companies with us, but 600 of their companies they are not connected with us. They have the child-friendly company seal because they don't have child labor and they invest in programs to children and adolescents. Don't need to be with us, but we recognize them. We have the seals there in Brazil.
So good morning to you all. It's a pleasure being here. I must thank Fundação Abrinq in the person of Vitor for inviting me for such an important discussion and the Chamber for hosting the event. In Brazil, we have some regulations. And what we have? So we have regulations for funds, which is this resolution from the CVM, our SEC, that says that investment policy must contemplate ESG rules and also have disclosure requirements. This is for investment funds. Financial institutions in Brazil are regulated by the central bank. And there are a whole regulation dealing with risk management in the portfolio and activities carried out by the institutions and how they manage the sustainability inside the institutions and within their clients. We also have a rule for insurance, reinsurance, and open private pension entities. Also, there is this Circular 666 that provide for sustainability requirements to be observed by insurance, open private pension entities, and capitalizations. But the most important focus when we're talking about ESG is the public traded companies that are also regulated for our SEC and require nowadays to disclosure what they are doing regarding ESG. And in this rule, there is a specific item that says that companies should disclose information regarding the adoption of the SDG framework by the company and the identification of the material SDG for the business. So the regulation for children in Brazil, the most important one is the Statute of Children and Adolescents, which determines the integral protection of children and adolescents in Brazil and ensures that all fundamental rights for children and obligations for all actors of society, including companies. Article 6 established the prohibition of all kinds of child labor, which is also prohibited by the Federal Constitution and the Consolidation of Labor Laws. Brazil has also ratified several international and inter-American human rights conventions, which offer human rights protection, including the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. We have here in Brazil, as I said, the S pillar, there are many discussions, but one of the most important discussion is the human rights discussion. Here we have the Decree 9571, which was built under the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights that I'm going to talk a little bit more later, and addresses voluntary commitments for business regarding human rights in Brazil. It's a voluntary, unfortunately, but it already includes specific provisions regarding companies' duties to respect children's rights. This is a voluntary rule, but there is now in the Congress a bill under discussion that is not going to be voluntary, and also establish that companies must address, control, and prevent and repair and have repair mechanisms capable of identifying and preventing violations of human rights. So these two mechanisms, the one that is already valid, which is a voluntary one, it's the biggest pillar of the S of the ESG regarding human rights and bring children to the discussion. And the bill is also going to bring children to the discussion.
It's a great pleasure to be here again with the Fundação Abrinq. The main problem that affects children is one that education has lagged enormously in Brazil. Brazil is one of the few places where one is always talking about resources, but resources mean industry. Resources mean what happens in terms of production rather than the worries about children. That is one of the fundamental problems that continues to become political because the solutions that are tried never seem to work. The solutions that have been tried involve having children work, having children with responsibilities in terms of the agricultural sector, in the mining sector, in a whole variety of ways.
I'm glad that first of all, my name is Edson. I'm Brazilian, born and raised in São Paulo, Brazil. And I'm glad that I made today because this is a wonderful presentation. Very interesting topic about children. One thing that stuck with me, I noticed first you mentioned, and I did the calculation, is 36,000 children die a year in Brazil. 36,000, it's a lot of child or children. This, and also we can, I noticed when you did the PowerPoint, the images of black and brown children. So disproportionately, they affected, it's unbelievable, the poverty. I don't want to get bogging down the Brazilian history, but I want you to address this, how the state, Brazilian state, let that happen, affecting black and brown disproportionately, and 36,000 children die every year in Brazil. This is unacceptable for a country the size of the powerhouse that Brazil is.
As Professor said, we had a problem with slavery in Brazil, million people who went from Africa, and we are talking now, right now, of decolonization. I don't know if it's a word in the US.
Yes.
And what we are doing is to support people in the territory who's living with this, because as you can see, I'm not the person to talk about this, but we are supporting NGOs and people who are leading with anti-racist activities, and we are supporting, financially supporting them. So it's not only us in Brazil, but other communities. And the government, they are reconnecting and restart the job for some committees. So now we have more diversity in the ministers, and so we have that. But I think Brazil is start to work with this, and for sure the numbers are amazing. So you can see homicides and other dropout children. There are most boys, black boys, and there are all those kind of. But I think we wake up for this. So it's a challenge. It's not going to solve in 5 years or 10 years, but we are starting. And as Abrinq Foundation, we are supporting NGOs who are starting to talk about this.
Child labor is not a crime in our penal code, because we have different legislation. So it's not a crime in the penal code, but it is prohibited in the statute of children that I mentioned, in also in the labor laws. But the reality, as Vitor said, the reality in some places of Brazil is that we have some children working with the families. And so there is also a cultural discussion when we're talking about this. And as Vitor said, some of small business and families, they just sign an agreement with the public prosecutor saying it's not going to happen anymore, but it's also a cultural thing. So we need a public policy regarding education, as he mentioned, so that we don't need and also increase the money that these families receive, so that they don't need to work with the children. So it's very complex, right? It's not just one. There is no one solution, right, Vitor? It's a mix of solutions.
Victor, thank you. Thank you to both of you and Juliana and Professor. Excellent presentations. Very insightful information and data. I had a very quick question for you, Victor. You had mentioned when you were talking about your daycare centers, you provide some training to educators. Can you say a little bit more about how you support educators, what kind of training you're providing them?
Sure. Part of the professionals, they came from other sectors. So they studied to become, to work in the sector. So we train them, administrative people, educators, and the coordinators and the managers, so different kinds. The pandemic was terrible, the pandemic crisis was terrible, but we increased the online trainings, so now we are able to do this. And we have now how to play, for example. And we were talking about racism. Now we have a specific class talking about this. How can avoid racism? How can you work, for example, with different kinds of toys and consider those toys represent not only Barbie as our goal. We have to, in Brazil, we have to other ones. So how to build toys, thinking doing this. How to play, we have some from Mozambique, Angola, and others. So we play those kind of with children, or we teach them to do this. So it's this kind of training that we have.
Thank you.
Thank you very much at our time again. I want to say thank you to Juliana, Professor from the Chamber, Childhood Education International. Thank you.